dreams trying to tell us? Do we communicate during our dreams? Can dreams predict the future, or is that just wishful thinking? Why do symbols and motifs appear in many people's dreams and even art?
Welcome to the Dreams Podcast with your hosts, Ali and I'm Alex. In today's podcast, we are going to introduce you to Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and talk about their theories about dreams and how they impact our psyche and the symbolic patterns that occur within them.
Can't wait. Should we get started?
There's no time like the present, Ali.
Awesome. To begin with, we'll get to know Sigmund Freud, known in Western culture as the father of psychoanalysis. If you think that learning about Freud is daunting, don't be a Freud. We will be gentle. In his lifetime, Freud used his greed for knowledge to take him on a quest for understanding, so perhaps he would respect our efforts to get to know his ideas a bit better.
He would prefer that we remember him for his ideas rather than who he was as a person. But when you're a man like Freud, it is hard to separate the man from the ideas, so we will get to know a bit of both today. While Freud considered himself a secretive man, he was passionate about digging up the secrets of others, so he should at least understand our fascination with his secrets.
His cigar is so big because it's full of secrets.
I suppose you could put it that way, Ali. He was the keeper of many secrets in his life, I'm sure. And we can uncover some of these secrets because while he considered himself a private person, he used himself for much of the examples in the interpretation of dreams and wrote much about his self-analysis.
I gathered up some Freud facts. I bet that I can say them all in 60 seconds or less. Alex, can you time me?
We have plenty of time, Ali. You don't have to rush through it.
It'll be more exciting this way. Freud facts, let's go. All right, Freud was born in 1856 and died in 1939. Freud married Martha Bernays, eventual aunt to Edward Bernays, pioneer of public relations and propaganda in the United States. The Freuds had 6 children in 9 years. His youngest, Anna, eventually became Freud's interpreter and a pioneer in child psychology. In the 1890s, there was a rumor that Freud was having an affair with his sister-in-law, Minna. But the best part, the rumor was started by Carl Jung, and some said he was projecting because Jung himself was having an affair with a patient. Freud smoked over 20 cigars a day and refused to quit even after he was diagnosed with lung cancer. He also used cocaine to perk up or relax in social settings, but he totally didn't have a problem and he could quit at any time. While he started out using hypnosis, Freud eventually adopted the pressure technique, basically putting his hands on the patient's forehead and commanding answers to his questions. Those questions taught him the value of listening was greater than asking questions. Most people have heard of a Freudian slip, where we say something we didn't mean that reveals a subconscious desire. Say what you will about Freud, but his impact on Western culture is undeniable. Did I finish on time?
Freud might have something to say about your competitive nature, Ali.
When did I sign up for psychoanalysis? There's just so much to say about Freud. We could probably do a whole podcast on just that. I got much of the information in this section from a wonderful book by Michael Jacobs called Sigmund Freud. Listeners can find a full list of the references we used on the Dreams podcast visual presentation at the end.
You're right, Ali. There's so much to say about Freud. You mentioned that Freud is considered the father of psychoanalysis, but can you tell us what exactly is psychoanalysis?
Absolutely. According to Freud, the human mind is made up of the ego, id, and the superego. These are the 3 parts of the psyche. The ego is what you see as yourself. The superego is where we keep our morals, our conscience, and the id is all of our base impulse desires, where we find our zest for life. And psychoanalysis is the theory that forces exist within the unconscious, driven by instinct, and these forces create powerful energy that can cause mental illness. Freud lived in the late Victorian era when they had the idea that they had everything under control. Yes, the Victorians were very rational. At the time, his ideas were seen as revolutionary and shocking. You mean to say that people are driven by aggression, sex, and death? Well, I know. Freud's influence on modern psychology is undeniable as a pioneer in the field of the unconscious. Today's podcast features on Freud and Jung and their ideas around dream theory, which is one of their main fields of research. Between Freud and Jung, there's just so much to say. And on that note, let's move on to Jung, after a quick message from our sponsor, Freudian Slips. Are you tired of looking like a granny in frumpy old slips?
You know I am, Allie.
Well, then you have to try Freudian slips, the latest, most modern slips on the market. Not only are they fashionable, but they are so comfortable, you just might slip into a dream.
That sounds amazing. I'll really have to try those out.
Well, Alex, if you visit them at www.freudianslips.ca and use the discount code SLIPPERY, you can get an extra 15% off. What a sexy, super deal.
Next, let's get to know Carl Gustav Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who lived from 1875 to 1961. But first, let's discuss the relationship between the two men.
A bromance for the ages.
Yes, Allie, the two men had quite the emotional friendship that came on fast, and like any good bromance, it had some drama and quite the bitter end.
Ooh, do tell. I'll get my popcorn.
Jung was a big admirer of Freud. He started using Freud's analysis techniques and then began writing him letters. They wrote letters back and forth for about a year before finally meeting in person. Once they met, they had so much to talk about that they talked for 13 hours straight.
That sounds like what'll probably happen when we finally meet face to face.
Well, let's hope our friendship is a little more enduring than that. The two men initially had a great relationship. Freud saw Jung as a way to help get his ideas to a wider audience. Freud believed anti Semitism was holding him back and that Jung, being Gentile, could achieve more widespread success and become Freud's successor. However, the two men had a falling out that all began over a dream.
You're kidding. That is too good.
That is how it started, Allie. Jung told Freud about a dream he had, and Freud became convinced that Jung wanted to kill him to fulfill the Oedipal complex. After this happened, resentment began to spread, and there were jealousies and differing opinions on theories that didn't help their relationship. Eventually, both wrote letters to each other ending their relationship. Freud finished his last letter to Jung with a cold rendition of Shakespeare's words, "The rest is silence."
Ooh, that's a good old school burn. I wouldn't want to be on Freud's bad side.
Very true, Allie. It can be hard to meet your idols and not put them on a pedestal. Freud was concerned that Jung had some religious transference onto him, which didn't help their strained relationship. Jung was much more religion focused and was raised in a spiritualistic environment where his family conducted seances in the home. This may have started off some of his fascination with the unknown and the unconscious. While Freud was on the quest for knowledge and to have his ideas living their own existence, Jung's life was all about symbols and achieving self understanding and a meaningful life through the symbolic language of dreams. Jung believed that therapy was a quest for spiritual problem solving and that the solution was through the understanding of symbolization. He called this process analytical psychology.
Symbolization. Intriguing.
Yeah, Ali. Jung believed that a symbol is the best representation of an unknown entity that is also believed to exist. He said that symbols change over time and eventually cease to be. These symbols play a large part in our psychology and lead us towards the resolution of life's challenges. Jung believed that consciousness can become widened through the relationship between the conscious and the unconscious and the development of inner dialogue and imagination. This widening happens particularly when the conscious is confronted by the symbolic contents of the unconscious. The end goal of this process is individuation, becoming whole and distinct from other people.
I definitely became whole and distinct from other people during the pandemic, but I don't think that's quite what Jung meant.
No, Ali, it's probably not. But he would have some interesting advice on the symbols in our pandemic dreams, I'm sure. Above all else, Jung believed in the healing power of the symbol. He spoke of how symbols are both natural and spontaneous products that hint at the unknown. He believed that dreams happen to us and that they are not invented, and within them, symbols occur spontaneously.
I heard that Jung gave our dreams a lot of power, and he talked about how our unconscious seems to know things before our consciousness. It comes up with a plan and then tells us about it in a dream.
That's efficient.
I know, right, Alex? If you can both understand and remember the dream, that is. But I suppose some of it sinks in regardless. Perhaps some of this unconscious puzzle solving led to the belief that dreams can tell the future. Did you know that in the Middle Ages, they even used dreams as a part of the medical process?
If it comes down to dream medicine or leeches, I would definitely take dream medicine. Thank you very much.
Good point. As we talked about earlier, Freud and Jung go together a bit in this regard. While both had different theories, there is a lot of crossover. I read a book by Jung called Dreams, and the whole first section mostly talks about Jung's work using Freudian theory. In our next section, we're going to dive deeper into all of that, and then we'll get back to symbols and archetypes at the end. Stay tuned. Jung described dreams as a passionate desire of the soul and the expression of a repressed wish. He spoke of how dreams can allow for wish fulfillment in a way. We can live out our fantasies in our dreams. He discussed how Freud believed that a dream is the fulfillment of a repressed wish.
Isn't that what Cinderella sang about?
Pretty close, Alex. Freud also spoke of how dreams are kind of a symbolic expression of the complex and can represent difficulties in the psyche. Usually, dreams are made up of thoughts that we're repressing.
I find that incredibly interesting because every time I have a dream with some kind of symbolic feature in it, I have to look it up to learn more about it. I have such vivid dreams and they can affect my mood quite a lot after.
Jung actually talked about that, Alex. Dreams can definitely affect our waking life and our moods. It can actually be quite hard to shake it off when your mind is working through something and won't let you rest well. Do you have any recurring symbols or themes in your dreams, Alex?
Yeah, actually, I do. There are a few that come up all the time. I don't necessarily remember the exact dreams, but I can always remember the feeling and that moment. And there's usually always one symbolic activity that sticks out to me. I keep having dreams about my teeth falling out. And the other big one that I have, that I've had since I was a child actually, is that I'll be trying to run away from something in my dreams and it's like I'm running in slow motion. I can never move fast enough.
Yikes, that one is no fun at all. I've had both of those actually. I used to have really vivid nightmares as a child until I learned how to control them. What a game changer that was. Have you ever tried to analyze your dreams and find out what they symbolize?
I actually have, Allie. I got really obsessed with figuring out what my dreams meant, and I found a website called Dreaming and Sleeping. They said that running slow in my dreams can mean that I'm going through a hard time and experiencing stress, which makes me feel powerless in the situation. And I can see that not being able to run does make me feel powerless in my dreams.
It sure does. It doesn't make for a restful sleep. When I'm really stressed out, I have dreams where I'm running late for work, but obstacles keep getting in the way and I never get there. Now that I work from home, my dreams have changed to me being late for airplanes. Even in my dreams, I don't get to travel. I also used to have the broken teeth dream, but for me, I think it was more because I grind my teeth at night and literally broke a few teeth, and you don't forget that scary feeling. Alex, what did you find out about the symbolization of dreaming about teeth falling out?
I've had the work one too, Allie. It's so weird when you're laying in bed and then you wake up and you just realize that you should be going to work and then you're not even there. It's the middle of the night. Back to the teeth, though. According to Healthline, it can mean that I'm dealing with some kind of loss or important life changes. It's really interesting to see these theories and how they match up with what I'm actually going through at the time.
I agree. It makes sense why Freud and Jung would also be so interested in finding out what dreams mean. They didn't have the internet like we do. When Jung spoke about dream analysis using the Freudian technique, he said that dreams should be analyzed empirically and not deductively. When we're conscious, the sensor in our psyche wants to keep things repressed. So it is necessary to take one of the most striking portions out of the dream, just like you did with the teeth and the running. Then you question the associations with it without trying to censor yourself.
That's easier said than done, though, Allie. Our mind has such a resistance to these things.
Definitely. But if we really want to understand ourselves at every level, we should at least try, especially those of us with vivid dreams because we have more material to work with. Jung said that everyone is the biggest expert on themselves, so we are best equipped to lead the way in analyzing our own dreams.
That is so interesting, Allie. That reminds me of when I was researching Freud and Jung. I found out about the work of Joseph Campbell, who followed a primarily Jungian view, but has some theories worth mentioning on their own. One of his main ideas can be summed up in this quote: These eternal ones of the dream are not to be confused with the personally modified symbolic figures that appear in Nightmare and Madness to the still tormented individual. The dream is the personalized myth, the myth, the depersonalized dream. Both myth and dream are symbolic in the same general way of the dynamics of the psyche. But in the dream, the forms are quirked by the peculiar troubles of the dreamer, whereas in myth, the problems and solutions shown are directly valid for all mankind.
I like that, Alex. I have actually heard of the famous quote from Campbell that was based on that section. It said, "The myth is the public dream, and the dream is the private myth." I just think that's so interesting.
Yeah, Ali, it's fascinating. Also, in the book from Campbell, it talked about his theory that children are born too young and don't have the personal skills to survive independently. This makes them dependent on their mothers, who are their first introduction to emotions. Since their mother is their first introduction to love, if they are separated, the infant feels aggression. He explains that the first object of the child's hostility is identical to their first object of love. That got me thinking about attachment theory and how the way our parents showed emotion and communication when we were young plays a part in all of our adult relationships.
I've actually heard about attachment theory and how it affects so many things in our relationships, but I wonder, does it affect our dreams too?
I actually found a study about that, Ali. It was done by Boston University's School of Medicine. But let's go back to the beginning. For those of you who don't know, there are four main types of attachment styles. First, we have the anxious attachment style. They have a constant need to feel close to their partner, and they feel insecure in the relationship. The second style is the secure attachment. This is the attachment style that we all strive to achieve. They are comfortable with intimacy and they're not worried about rejection. The third attachment style is an avoidant, the opposite of an anxious attachment style. They are comfortable with closeness and value their independence. And the fourth type is a hybrid of anxious and avoidant. They are worried about their partner not loving them, but they're just as afraid to get too close to them. It's really common for adults to have a combination of traits and not just fit into one of these sections, Ellie.
I've probably been most of these at some point. Maybe now I'm avoidant because I avoid dating altogether.
Yeah, relationships take a lot of work, Allie, and it's crazy to think of how much of our adult selves are formed when we are babies. We have no say in our attachment style. It's literally just based on how our parents loved us and our experiences growing up.
Yeah, c'est la vie. We all just have to play the cards we're dealt. Did you find out how our attachment style can affect our dreams?
Yeah, Allie, the Boston University School of Medicine attachment style study found that people who are more insecurely attached, aka the anxious attachment style, have more vivid dreams and are better at recalling them. I think that's fascinating because if our dreams are signs from our psyche, that group of people would be most likely to have more dreams because of all their fears and worries.
That describes me on both fronts. I have quite elaborate dreams. I've actually been told that I talk in my sleep. And if I'm feeling fancy, I might even sleepwalk or hallucinate spiders over my head and then jump out of my bed while I'm still asleep. It's never a dull moment with me. Sometimes I wish that I could suppress it all and not have dreams at all, like I heard some people do.
That's funny you talked about hallucinating spiders. I was watching Finding Dory the other day when I was falling asleep, and I woke up gasping for air because I thought that I was drowning in my sleep because I was like half asleep, half awake. It was brutal. But
Oh,
anyway, back to not being able to have dreams because you suppress your emotions. I dated someone with an avoidant attachment style, and he would just suppress all of his emotions, and he said that he could never remember his dreams. So that kind of works.
I wonder how that works though. Maybe since they hide all of their memories deep down in their minds, the subconscious just can't find things to change into dreams. I don't know, but I take it back. I don't think I would want emptiness every night.
They say ignorance is bliss, Allie. Maybe empty dreams have the same effect? The report did say that there was a difference in REM sleep between anxiously attached and avoidant subjects. They said they believed that avoidant subjects experienced increased inhibition levels during REM sleep circuits. These low REM activation levels made it more difficult to remember their dreams. The anxiously attached subjects had higher REM activation levels. Preoccupied subjects overactivate during REM because REM functions as the attachment system in mammals. So high REM activation levels spill over into the awake state, which explains how some people have such vivid dream recall.
Ooh, thank you, Dr. Science. All of this talk about REM sleep makes me feel like I'm back in my healthcare career. I spent a decade working in sleep medicine, but nothing as fun as dream studies, though.
It really is interesting to learn that they can actually measure these things and actively study our dreams. I think the fact that we both remember our dreams so vividly means that we're most likely to have an anxious attachment style. At least I know I do. And those of us who remember our dreams have a better chance of remembering the archetypes that also show up in our dreams.
That's a good point, Alex. I think that we're actually the lucky ones. According to Jung, the unconscious is full of fantasy and forgotten elements that have not yet come to the surface or even the unconscious. Within these elements, there are instinctive, inherited elements called archetypes. This played a huge part in Jungian theory. In the next section of our podcast, we are going to tell you all about archetypes, right after this message from our sponsor. Hey, Alex, did you figure out what you're getting your niece for her birthday yet?
I did, Allie. I found the coolest set of toys for her at dreamgames.com. The Archetypes playset. It has everything. There are figurines of the persona, the anima, the shadow, the self, and everyone's favorite, the hero.
Ooh, that sounds so fun. I want one too.
But wait, there's more. Each set comes with a surprise figurine that's either the lover, the caregiver, the ruler, the creator, the sage, the innocent, the regular guy or girl, the jester, the wizard, the hero, the rebel, or the explorer.
Nice. Who doesn't love a surprise?
For sure, Allie. If you're looking for a fun playset that just might show up in your dreams, get yourself an Archetypes playset. Use the discount code DREAMHERO to get 15% off this fantastic playset. All right, Allie, now that we're into archetypes, let's do this.
Yep.
Archetypes are an instinctive trend, like building a bird's nest. They are something that is all around us. We've grown up with them without even realize we are growing up with them. While the personal complexes never produce more than a personal bias, archetypes create myths, religions, and philosophies that influence and characterize whole nations and epochs of history.
I hadn't thought about archetypes much, but now that I've learned more about them, they're kind of everywhere. Archetypes are found in so much art and culture, especially the hero. Alex, I dare you to try and think of a story without a hero. Anti heroes don't count.
I honestly don't think I can, Allie. I'm sure there are some out there, but they are not as exciting or engaging. Pretty much every movie, TV show, or story that we find ourselves drawn to has some kind of a hero in it, someone that we're cheering for to win. Because, as you know, the hero saves us all.
Wouldn't that be nice? As we discussed, archetypes are so powerful and influential. We have been exposed to the hero archetype so much that I wonder how it has impacted not only the way we see archetypes in our conscious lives, but how we dream about them.
Yeah, Allie, Young discovered that there were gestures, attitudes, and thought forms that followed a pattern established before we evolved to reflective consciousness. Young believed that archetypes are instinctual and inherited and are a part of our collective thought pattern, and in dreams, he referred to it as the collective unconscious. One of our evolutionary steps was to reflect on our experiences to help us make better choices. Well, Young did say that it can take being shocked by an emotional experience to make people wake up and make big changes. He found that archetypes work behind the scenes to set up circumstances that can lead to big crises.
Even the archetypes are out to get me. I guess I'd better figure this all out to improve my defenses. All right, Alex. So, as I understand it, there are four major archetypes. We have the persona, and that represents the metaphorical masks we wear in social situations as a form of protection. And then the anima or animus, depending on if you identify as male or female. And that one represents the opposite gender qualities and attributes in the psyche. Then, oh yeah, the shadow. He's lurking in the background. He's the dark side of our mind, the villain, bringing us the wildness and the chaos. And then, last but not least, the self, all the aspects of the individual. Is that right?
Work, Alley. Those are the main four, but Young was a busy man and he actually identified 16 archetypes overall. So, although those are the major ones, the other 12 are the lover, the caregiver, the ruler, the creator, the sage, the innocent, the regular guy or girl, the jester, the wizard, the hero, the rebel, and the explorer.
I guess that ad was a bit of a spoiler alert, but I guess some people skip those. So good thing we reviewed it. Archetypes are fascinating. Jung believed that archetypes are to the unconscious as knowledge and reason are to the conscious mind. Jung said that dreams are the main source of all of our knowledge about symbolism, and that these motifs and symbols vary, but they still follow a basic pattern. Where a sign is simple and represents less than the concept, a symbol is vast and can mean so much more than what is obvious. Jung believed that since archetypes make us so astonished and bewildered, that they must be more than superstition. He felt that if something originates within our mind, our psyche should have a better time making sense of it.
Wow, that's so interesting, Allie. Our brains can do such powerful things. I liked what you said earlier about archetypes showing up in the media that we were surrounded with. It's funny because even in my language arts class growing up, we always had to dissect stories and movies to understand the archetypes within the stories better. Everything around us is built on them.
Yes, they are, Alex. That takes us back to Joseph Campbell. Although the hero isn't actually one of the four main archetypes, maybe he needs a better PR rep. But the hero is the basis of so much that Campbell called it the monomyth, the first and primary myth that all other myths are based on.
Yeah, Campbell said that in most media today, every story follows the same pattern. The hero's journey shows an evolutionary arc that mirrors our own process of going through life and growing up. There are three stages of the monomyth. It begins with separation. The hero leaves and enters a supernatural or otherworldly realm. Then we have initiation, when the hero is confronted with forces, temptations, villains, and he overcomes or defeats them. And then finally, the last step is the return, when the hero returns with wisdom and power and tries to share with humanity.
Didn't Young and Campbell believe that the death of the hero represented the death of the ego that's necessary for our growth?
Yeah, Ali, they did. We need to learn to let go of our past. In the Book of a Thousand Faces, Campbell talks about detachment theory and how if our psyche is trying to detach from something, the final step is to detach from it in your dreams. He gave an example of boys in Australia who go through a traumatic circumcision ceremony that involved a snake. The boys would have nightmares about it, but one boy faced the snake in his dream. The snake lunged and bit off his manhood, but he was free. He had finally detached from that memory.
Wow, I've actually experienced something like this. I know my brain is working at night to solve problems, and that some of them are about things I should probably detach from.
Yeah, I remember one time, I guess it wasn't necessarily in a dream. I was in New York and I had been hung up on this boy for a year and I was absolutely miserable and sad. But that trip made me realize that there was more to life than being sad. And as I walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, I wrote, "You're free in heart" on the railing. And after that day, I had released myself. I got home and my life was so much better moving forward. I think somewhere in my psyche, the art of letting go physically made me detach entirely that day.
Wow, what a beautiful story. I bet that made your dreams a bit more peaceful after that because letting go can be so freeing. Dreams can be just so powerful and help us process emotions to get us to the places we need to be.
I agree, Ellie. Good thing we have Freud and Jung to help us understand our dreams and improve our mental health. We really hope you enjoyed the Dreams podcast and laughed along with us as you learned. Freud and Jung may be old school, but their work was so influential that their impact on Western culture is undeniable. We touched on the surface of many things today: archetypes, dream analysis, attachment theory, and how it relates to REM sleep and letting go.
If you didn't absorb all of the information today, simply listen to the podcast again when you're trying to sleep. Who knows, we just might show up in your dreams.
Is that a threat, Ellie?
I can't control what their psyches do, but I hope that all of our listeners have pleasant dreams.
That's for sure. Thanks for listening, everyone, and sweet dreams.